Hi, my name is Promise Nkono, and I'm a third year product design major and the student facilitator for Dragon Network, Drexel's official online professional development community for students and alumni. I'm so excited to be joined by Brielle DeMirjian, who holds a Bachelor of Science in Graphic Design and graduated in the class of 2013. We're looking forward to learning more about her career path and journey since attending Drexel. Brielle, thank you for joining us.
I'm so excited to be here. I'm a big fan of Drexel, so listen, whatever it takes.
Yeah, so let's jump right in. How did your time at Drexel shape your career? What were some of the defining experiences that helped you shape your unique career path?
So at Drexel, I really appreciated that being a graphic design major, the moment that that major was declared, which was actually pretty immediately freshman year, every class was tailored to that goal of me being a professional graphic designer. So rarely did I ever feel like I had classes in my curriculum that were just kind of like filler. It all felt relevant, which is a relief when you're trying to be educated in a certain direction. And I really appreciated how professional my professors were. They treated us like how we would operate in an agency, especially in my junior and senior year. And we were thrust into like professional critiques very quickly. So to build that skill is a muscle. And I like that we were treated as professionals and colleagues from the get-go. And a really pivotal moment for me and my development as a designer was definitely the co-op program, to be in a situation where I was in a design office and being paid for it. So you feel valuable. But on top of that, I was being trusted with things, which can feel so scary in the professional world. The idea of like, oh God, I'm in charge of this project. But that's how you learn that you can be in charge of things like that. And to learn that in my undergrad moment versus being only thrown into that post grad was really valuable.
Yeah, a lot of people say that co-op is a big factor in how they come to Drexel. Was there anything you were nervous about with your degree and entering co-op, especially as a design student? I'm a Westport major, so it's rough
Yeah.
right now.
Yeah, I'm sure I got this kind of rigmarole of like, um, it's going to be so hard. You won't be able to do it. The arts are dying. The truth is that like the world needs art, the world needs design. And especially when in the realm of like, we aren't in fine art, even though what we do is very artistic, but like someone always needs someone to work in this corporate way or in this more like, it can be a little bit watered down way where yeah, you're not making the most innovative art, but there's absolutely career opportunities for people who want to work in a creative space like design. And so with the co-op, I found that it was scary going into it because I didn't know how what I was working on at school would be received by people who have been in the career for so long, especially as like technological advancements have happened. Like the Adobe suite is relatively new compared to some people who were still working. Like when in my first job out of college, there was someone there who was still one of like the main designers, but she was like 60. And so she was still talking about working in Quark, which was like I'd never even heard of, but that used to be the standard. So I was afraid of like how I would mesh, but if anything, it was a nice reminder that like being young and being a student means that I have more innovative designs or innovative ideas at times that maybe they just wouldn't have because like I'm being taught actively for years in my undergrad program to like innovate, think outside the box. So my co-op was with the Greater Philadelphia Chamber of Commerce in their creative department, which was actually incredible preparation for where I went for my first job after college, which was the creative department at Hearst, so another corporate environment. And so it was a really nice, almost like amuse bouche before going into like this the heavy entree of my career. But that was like the co-op was a nice way of like soothing me. So when I started looking for jobs post grad, I was like, oh, I've already done this. This isn't as scary as it would be if I hadn't done it at all.
Mm. Yeah, that's good that it primed you just for where your career headed. And looking into how your career has evolved, it looks like you've worked in a variety of things. You've worked in corporate
Yeah.
design, television graphics, comedy. How did all these roles find themselves to overlap and shape your creative
Yeah.
approach?
I like to say I have a very diversified portfolio. And So I'm the youngest of four kids, so I have this like disease where I want attention, which meant that from a young age I was like, oh, what if I was in theater? And then my parents were like, hey, so don't do that. But they did put me in theater camp for one summer, and I cried a lot, and they were like, great. So we tried that. And then I wanted to still do something creative, and design always came pretty naturally to me. My parents work in print, and so they clocked that pretty early, like my birthday cards and things. They're like, "Hey, this is actually pretty good. You could do this professionally," which was very sweet of them to acknowledge. And then, so I took the design career path in college because Drexel has an excellent graphic design program, and I was really honored to be accepted. And that felt like, oh, I could do this professionally just because they accepted me. And then, I really loved it. And then when I graduated and then I moved to New York for my first job, which was very, very New York scary kind of like agency type design. Um, I still had the theater bug in me, so I signed up for improv classes. Sue me. I loved it. I fell in love with it. It was so wonderful. So I was doing both for a while. I was doing like typical corporate design along with like doing comedy at night. And then a wonderful thing happened, which was the worlds blended. And a fellow comedian was working at Full Frontal with Samantha Bee doing television graphics. And after I had quit my job at Hearst, he and I were at a party together. And I was like, I quit my job. And he was like, cool. Do you want to work at Sam B? And I was like, oh, absolutely. And that was the beginning of my television graphics. So it kind of all melded together, like my interest in theater and comedy and my interest in design eventually has led me to where I am now. Once you're kind of have your foot in the door with television graphics, they like to like kind of pluck internally other shows. So I moved from show to show as shows either went on hiatus or got canceled. Other shows want to pick up existing TV graphics designers because it's a specific skill. So I'm now at The Daily Show, which I absolutely love. And that I would have never gotten on this path there if it hadn't been for my work in comedy as well. So it's like I do a wide range of things, but they all are connected a little bit.
Yeah. Well, it's great that you bring up The Daily Show. I was like, what? She worked at The Daily Show?
Oh,
Tell us about that
yeah.
experience. How's it been? Did you have any like apprehensions or, expectations, challenges?
I love working at The Daily Show. I work there currently as a graphic designer and animator. It is such a great environment. And in the times where everything feels kind of helpless, it feels nice that my job is connected to somewhat of the resistance of like putting humor towards all of the terrible things happening feels really nice. And it's interesting going into it. Um, I wasn't that apprehensive because this is now my third job in television graphics. And this wonderful thing happens where, as you get older and you get further along in your career, you just start to trust that you can do it. So, on my first day of the Daily Show, of course, yeah, I was a little bit like, oh, what will the building look like? I just want to make sure I'm doing a good job. But that dissipated really quickly because I was like, I've done this so many times before. Once you're new at a job 3 or 4 times, it just kind of becomes like muscle memory. And I was really honored to be hired there. And that felt so like holy grail. Like, I think it's the coolest show that films in New York. And so to work there is such an honor. But in terms of my own skill set, because I could look back on 10 to 12 years of experience in design, I was just like, oh, I got this. And that was a really surprising and wonderful feeling.
Like your self-esteem and like confidence. It's just like, oh, I can do this. I've proven that I can
Yeah.
do this, so I'm gonna be okay. That's good. That's really
Yeah.
inspiring. Because I know a lot of people struggle with that. Like, I think like imposter syndrome and like finding a role that
Oh,
they're good at. So like, I think that could
yeah.
speak to a lot of students and alumni and what they're going through.
Yeah, I would hope so. And imposter syndrome, I feel it deeply, and like that was something I struggled with a lot. Was like because I received honors while I was at Drexel. I got design awards and things like that that I was so incredibly proud of. And then I had this feeling of like, oh, but in the real world, no one's going to believe that I got that or I earned it, or it's just because I was only within this specific group and it was like it wasn't relevant to like they're still going to eat me alive or something. And it's like, no, if you're told you're good or you're receiving any kind of positive recognition, it's because you earned it. It's not a mistake. And not everyone is doing what you're doing, which I think is the fallacy I get caught up in, is being like, oh, I have this idea, but I bet everyone has the idea. It's like they don't have that idea. You have that idea. Follow it, execute it.
Yes, yes. And I know you briefly touched on it a bit earlier, like the tools that you use and how, there's been outdated tools that you came into the industry, getting to know, and now, the whole landscape has changed. AI,
Mhm.
Canva, how have those tools kind of
Oh,
remade the
traumas.
landscape of the design industry? What is that like for you?
So, oh, my God. Okay. I got an incredible education at Drexel using the Adobe suite, which is still the standard. And like I had such a leg up because we had such specific classes focused on those programs, which was excellent. And thankfully, that still is the standard. Now, as we talk about things like Canva, oh my God. So I understand its purpose. Um, but it's frustrating when people think that it is a replacement for a designer. I'm like, it is its own thing. If you want to do something on your own, okay, great, that's fine. But I don't appreciate the thought that that means you don't need a designer if you're working on like a big campaign or something that will be very public facing. It's There is a reason that a lot of like the reason my degree took 4 years is because it took 4 years to educate someone in the idea of professional design. So, but I understand its purpose. Now, my relationship to people who think that they're designers and don't think they need designers runs very deep because being in the comedy world, very often people want posters for their shows to promote their shows and they don't want to pay. Because they're all broke, which I get. Like we're all starving artists out here in New York, especially if you're in the performing arts and you're only in the performing arts. Um, but the amount of times I was reached out to design something for free, and early in my career, in my comedy career, I would say yes because I wanted good connections. But now it's like, oh, it's just so insulting. And design is one of those things that people think that they could do on their own. It's like when they go to the MoMA and see a Rothko, and they're like, I could do that. I'm like, so you actually couldn't. And when it comes to AI now, oh God, nightmare fuel. We do not use it, and like it's something that I find to be so like brain draining. Like it is removing all sense of creativity. And people who utilize it to fully generate, whether it's an image or like a book. I know someone who wrote a book and they calling it that, and it's just an AI book. And it's like, oh, we're just becoming like slop potatoes. And so the fact that AI is so horrible for the environment and so horrible for like our problem solving brains, I my relationship to it is like keep it far away from me. And I don't think it's something that we as a design community need to like somehow adapt to, because the truth is what makes us designers is that we don't use a tool that thinks for us. We are the brain power behind our designs. Um, I'll step off my soapbox now.
But I totally resonate with that. I think, like psychologically, I think these tools that prioritize efficiency are kind of killing our brain cells low key,
Yeah.
and people don't realize
Yeah.
it. And it's like you got that degree for a reason, and it's 4 years for a reason. And it's good also to speak to actually being recognized for your worth and realizing your worth in the industry when people are like, oh, can you just make me this poster for free? And it's like, no, I have expertise that took years to get together for. So yeah, and even in, your corporate environments and also your creative freelance settings, what have been your learnings about like managing time, that creativity in each of these fields?
hmm So I'm blessed with being a pretty quick designer, which has led me to excel in television graphics, which is very like hurry up because we're taping the show in a couple hours. So I have found that in terms of like time management and things like that, it is always with the goal of you need to do your job well. And that can mean different things. That can mean either delivering something on time. Well, ideally, it's all of these things. But you want to be a designer, but you can't always be an artist. And that it's an important distinction that it's not like it's soul sucking. It's just that if what's serving the client best isn't your favorite idea, oh well. you know, like your job is to present what you think is best. Very often, and when I am presenting a client with options, I usually do what I think is best and then what they asked for. And then sometimes a blend of two, blend of both if I can do that. But I find very often that people, when they approach a designer, rather than telling the designer the problem, they tell the designer the solution, which isn't helpful because it's my job to find the solution. So if I they come to me asking for a show poster and they tell me the exact image and what font and color and things like that, it's always going to be bad. That's very much the case. They might accept it though because they just have this stubborn idea in their head of what it should be. But what they should come to a designer with is like, okay, I want to evoke the tone of this. The theme of this short film, let's say for a short film poster, is this, and I want the overall effect to be this. And then the designer can take that, digest it, and be like, great. So, in my years of doing this and in my years of study and my experience in the field, these will solve those problems or like those wants and desires. And so, as a designer, it is your job to problem solve at all times. And that can be that you're working with a difficult client or a difficult manager. Your job is just to make sure that you are the ultimate compromise queen and you're finding a way to make everyone happy. Sometimes, though, that means you are unhappy, but oh well. If someone's going to be unhappy in the interaction, it should be you, because you're supposed to be delivering a product that is successful in your client's eyes and whoever it is that you're working with on the team.
So it's all about balance. All about balance.
Yeah, I know. Isn't it annoying when like the same philosophies apply to so many things, but it's a reason that's like a classic adage. It's like, well, it's true. It makes sense. It's about balancing what you want, what they want, and overall what makes for the most successful product.
And now, even thinking about, this relationship and connection with people in order to make a good product, my mind goes towards mentorship. So mentorship is big here at Dragon Network. We love helping people get confident about finding mentors, being mentees. And I want to know, how has mentorship played a role in your career? How have mentors helped you along your journey, at Drexel and your corporate life? How has that been for you?
When I think of like my first mentor outside of Drexel after graduation, there was the creative director at Hearst, which is where I worked for about 6 years after graduation, immediately after graduation. And her name was Nan, and she was my rock. She was my everything. And what she really taught me the most, because we had a very strict and controlling and scary boss, truthfully scary. She loved to make people cry. And Nan really taught me to not be scared, and I think that a great mentor doesn't tell you what to do, but they're there to kind of be like, hey, I see what's going on and I see what you're feeling, and that's okay. But like, it is okay. You can, she had been there also since she was right out of college as well, but she had been there longer than me. She was older than me. So she, I think, saw herself in me. And I think about her all the time still. When I was like freaking out, she was there to be like, it's all right. I've gone through this and we're just going to power through. And they kind of make it seem possible. That was at least my experience because I jumped into a very scary environment right after graduation, just a very toxic work environment. But it did shape me. It whipped me into shape. And in terms of like, that was a very kind, wonderful mentor. And then I had the opposite, which was a very mean mentor, though. Like, I learned a lot from my boss at the time. She said that was in that same environment and she ran the department and she was like terrifying. And the thing is, though, is that yes, she was very, yeah, aggressive and unnecessarily kind of like hostile, but she was a brilliant visionary, unfortunately, and she was a great designer and she understood what worked and what didn't. And like, could she have delivered those thoughts better? Obviously. But there's that other kind of mentor where like you can actually, not that she called herself that in that way, but even when you have a hard relationship with someone at a job, you can learn and you can kind of put a different set of glasses on to be like, I actually learned a lot from that very toxic person. And I think that that's also important. So even if a mentor isn't presenting itself to you in this kind way of being like, I'm going to hold your hand, there are people that you can always learn from, whether it be positive or negative. And I think in that way, there's always something available to educate you when you're in a professional environment.
Mm. That's good. And what has been perhaps your favorite like project, maybe mentors helped you along the way? The Daily Show, before the Daily
Mm.
Show,
Oh my gosh.
your
I've
best,
done a lot, so
your
it's hard
favorite
to.
one. I know it's hard.
So as a designer, I would say, okay, this is I think the coolest and biggest scale thing I've done is that when I was working at Hearst, um, I was on the team that originated the design of what they call Hearst windows. So at the base of the Hearst building, there's these huge glass windows, and inside are these dynamic LED screens that create like a triangular pattern. And the news and different like Hearst brand updates and things animate on there, and it's like a giant news screen almost on the left and right side of the building. And so I was part of that original design team, both like, and so I was there from starting at zero to all the way to execution, and like the big celebration and like this big party that was thrown to be like the debut of the windows. And while like, do I think that it's the most beautifully designed thing as I walk by it now, I'm like what's actually on the screens, it's like, oh no, it serves like a corporate purpose. But I think it's so cool that this landmark building has this giant installation that I was part of the original design team for, and I think that's certainly one of the cooler things I've like added to the structure of New York. So that is certainly cool.
Yeah, that's cool how it's overlapped with installation art and like communication. I
Hmm.
think at the end of the day, design is all under one big umbrella, and the best designs come in, our fields overlap. So that's really nice to hear. What would be
Yeah.
your very last piece of advice, like just parting advice for students and alumni? Maybe something you wish you knew when you were younger that, people can take away with them.
Ooh. I think my last piece of advice would be it's okay if it's hard. I was graduating at a time where everyone thought that all design was only going to be on web, even though I was a print designer and I loved print and I didn't want to learn to code. I tried. I took a coding class at Drexel. The teacher was wonderful and all that. It just didn't click in my brain. And it did not excite me at all. I wanted to design books and posters and pamphlets and one sheets and magazines. And I just kept being met with this same response, which was, you can't. Or, man, if you want to work in print, it's going to be really hard. And so I said, all right, then it'll be hard. And I did end up working in print, and it was completely fine that I didn't know how to code. And I think that I'm really glad that I followed my instinct to not like concede and only look at jobs that, or only take classes that would serve this narrative that I was being told versus what I wanted to do. And it's okay if it's hard. If you're receiving feedback and like feedback from a career you're trying to chase, and someone tells you, oh, it's going to be really hard to do. It's like, all right, then it'll be hard. That's okay. It's okay for things to be hard. And it's much better to fail at something you're trying to do because you want to do versus failing at something that you don't give about. So if you're already going to go out there and experience rejection and experience hardship, it should be for something that you really believe in or want to do, because it's going to happen anyway, even if it's something you don't give about. So do it even if it's hard, because if it's hard, that means it's even more worth doing. And like, I don't let people get in your ear about what you should be doing. Chase after what you want to be doing, because you'll find a way, because persistence and like just sticking around and sticking to it will eventually take you to where you want to go, no matter what the path is. So what is at the end of that path might as well be the thing that you've been dreaming of doing.
Mhm. Period. Well, thank you so much for your time and your inspiring
Of
responses today.
course.
I personally really enjoyed it, and I know both our
Oh,
alumni
I'm so
and our
glad.
students are going to appreciate the words that you said. So thank you. Thank you again. And we welcome
Wow.
everyone to join us next month for our next Power Lunch series interview. And we hope that you all continue to utilize Dragon Network to connect with one another. Thank you again, Brielle. Thank
Of
you.
course. Thank you.